And that's my first goal, is that, we're not really just making great dancers, but we're really making great kids. And
That's how you define success. These
to
kids.
me, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Welcome again to Conversations with Kendall. I'm your host, Kendall Lutz, and your family real estate advisor as well here at Preferred Shore. I specialize in choreographing potentially the biggest production of your life, which is the sale of your home. And my production team creates a presentation that is unmatched and unparalleled by anybody else in this industry. So give me a call. Just put my phone number out there right away. Give me a call at 847-980-8987 if you'd like to see that visual and that production. As you've heard me say a million times on my podcast and advertisements, I think Sarasota County is well known for its beautiful beaches. It's also gorgeous sunsets. But to me, and one of the reasons I moved here, it's also known as Florida's cultural coast. From the Van Wezel Performing Arts Building to Sarasota Ballet. It's enriched with visual and performing arts. And along those lines, my guest today is a Sarasota cultural icon as well, who's impacted the lives of probably literally thousands of families and individuals in the Sarasota area, and perhaps across the country as these people move out or move in. So please welcome the CEO and founder of Stage Door Studios, Jill Athridge.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so glad you were able to make it today. I found out you're off Mondays anyway, so this is probably a good fit.
Yes, this is a good morning gig.
Good. That's right. So tell me, again, thanks for being here. Part of my conversation is exploring your journey, where you were, what brought you here. Tell me about where you were born, what it was like growing up in your hometown, whether you had a couple hometowns or not, and how did that influence your path to where you're at today?
Well, I was born in Massachusetts, so I'm a New Englander.
Okay.
Big Patriots fan, big Red Sox fan.
All
so
right.
I
We won't hold that against you.
Apologize. I mean, I do like the Tampa Bay Bucks too. My dad's name is John Lynch, so you have to
not
you have
the
to
John Lynch.
Not the John Lynch, but yes. Often people would call our house and say, "Is your dad the John Lynch? We're going to come work on the plumbing, and we want to know if he's the real John Lynch." And my dad always says he's the original John Lynch.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm sure the other John Lynch is a little bit younger.
Yeah, so I was born in Massachusetts. I moved here to Sarasota in 6th grade. So I didn't live there for very long. I got to experience the cold weathers and sledding and, all of those things throughout my childhood, but moved here in 6th grade. So I was at the original Sarasota Middle School, that's now Sarasota High School.
Oh, wow.
And got, it was very difficult because when I moved here, I was the youngest. In Massachusetts, the cutoff for schools is January 1st. So I was an October 20th baby, and I was an entire year younger than everybody else.
Wow.
So
If that was down here, you'd be the oldest.
Yes.
Yes.
Now my son's birthday is in October, and he's the
Oldest
one
in
of the
class,
older one
right.
in his classes. So I was an entire year younger.
Wow.
So I was equivalent of what a 5th grader would be. Moving here in 6th grade was super difficult, but dance is really what saved me. I got involved in dance, and all of my friends were younger, more my age, and it's kind of what got me through school.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then when you got involved in dance here.
Mm-hmm. So I from then on, continued dancing. I started teaching at a young age. I was teaching dance at 15 years old.
Wow.
In my senior year in high school, I taught 17 dance classes a week, took my dance classes as well, and went to school.
Wow.
So, yes. Yeah.
And where'd you go to school at?
I went to Sarasota High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And teaching that high school while you were...
I was teaching at my dance studio.
Okay.
So I was teaching 17 dance classes a week to lots of little girls, and continuing to go to high school as well.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. What was the inspiration then for dance for you? Was it your outlet? What?
Yes, definitely an outlet. It was definitely a place to be around other girls. And I loved teaching. Everybody kept telling me that I was going to be a dance teacher. I was going to own a studio, and I kept saying no. I said, no, I'm gonna go into theater. I'm going to move to New York. I'm going to be on Broadway, and I'm not going to own a dance studio.
But did you go to New York?
I did. I moved to New York at 20 years old, and I went to the American Music and Dramatic Academy and studied theater, dance, voice. Did some different gigs for some movies and worked some off-Broadway shows and things. Never hit the big show or the big time. Ended up working in a lot of restaurants because that's what you do
That's right.
in order to survive. I mean, they don't call you a starving artist for nothing.
Yep.
So
We've seen that in La La Land, how she works as a
absolutely.
barista.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So and actually, it's funny because that's where I met my husband.
In New York.
In New York City, he went to AMDA as well at a different time, and he worked with me at a restaurant. I was his boss. Yep.
And you still are to this
And
day, so
that's
something's
what
never
he
changed.
Says. That's what he says.
Yeah.
He said, you were my boss then, and you're my boss now. There was never any sort of romantic anything when we lived in New York. It wasn't until later on that we ended up seeing each other.
Were you
which is
your
funny.
best friends? Just
No.
acquaintance? No. Wow.
No, I was just his boss. It was just, he was born in Massachusetts too. So we were both Red Sox fans, both Patriots
Living
fans,
in New York.
living in New York City.
I mean, you're isolated as it was, being a Red Sox fan in New York, I
Yes.
imagine. Wow. So, so what inspired you? What was the turning point where, first of all, you had to come back to Sarasota?
Yes.
What event happened that made you come back to Sarasota and start your business? I have to back up. You said you were teaching while you were in high school.
Yeah.
So you kind of started your own. Was that teaching for somebody else?
I was teaching for the dance studio I grew up at.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
what was the turning point? What all happened?
I just had that aha moment. Like, am I going to be working in a restaurant for the rest of my life type thing? I'm not.
Hoping to get the big.
I'm not enjoying New York as much. I love New York. I always said, like, if I won the lottery, I'd move back to New York. But I think that if you live in New York and you don't have the kind of money that you really need to have, you don't get to enjoy it.
Right.
So I just decided it was time to reinvent myself. So I, just like anybody else would maybe go back to where their family is to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So I moved back to Sarasota. I was 28 years old at that time, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually got my real estate license, so it's funny
There you go.
that we're talking about real estate, so I can tell you a little bit about that. Of course, I got my real estate license in 2006.
Good time to get that license.
Which was the best time ever to get a real estate license when the housing market is crashing. I also worked at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I bartended.
Right here? One right downstairs?
The one on 41
Okay.
in like Stickney Point.
Gotcha.
Over there. So I worked at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse because I could bartend quickly. And then the dance studio I grew up at was sold to people that didn't know what they were doing. They didn't own a dance, or they never took a dance class in their life. So they asked me to go over and teach. So I went over to teach a few classes, see if I could help them salvage and make sure that the studio survived.
Made it.
Unfortunately,
2006.
about 6 months later, it did not. And so that's when I had this opportunity to open my own dance studio, because the dance studio that I grew up at, that I loved, was no longer. And apparently it was the best idea ever because 11 other studios opened at the same time.
Wow.
So
In 2006.
it was 2007 was when I ended up opening it.
But 11 other businesses, dance studios in Sarasota, 2007,
studios.
which was not a as big of a city as it is now.
No.
How do people think, like Starbucks and some of these other,
Yeah.
they go out and they look at the population and what people are looking for, and is there a Starbucks within so much feet? They make sure that they're going to make it.
Yep.
These folks didn't have that thought process, I
No,
guess.
and a lot of people went big. The building that my dance studio was in was sold for $1.5 million, and they put in a dance studio. They bought it for $1.5 million. Downtown here, right by Caragiulo's, there was an 11,000 square foot space that somebody purchased or rented to put in a dance studio. And the current space that I'm in right now, somebody leased it and put in $250,000 to put in these beautiful sprung floors and floor-to-ceiling mirrors, and built it all out, $250,000. So people were putting lots of money in. And there I am with my real estate license and my Ruth's Chris Steakhouse bartending experience, trying to, pay for my $400 a month apartment that I shared with my sister, and, beat all of these people. And I don't mean beat, because there is enough people in Sarasota that you could all have a little bit, of the pie. But when you have, your competition is outspending you the way they are, you have to figure out what to do and how you're going to make it.
And you did. That's good.
I did. And I'll tell you that the secret, and I hope that there's no other dance studios listening.
Turn off now.
It was to be involved in the schools. So I went into several schools. I went into Philippi Shores Elementary, and I choreographed their spring musical and did all of the hand gestures for Under the Sea. And I went into Tatum Ridge, and I went to every kindergarten class, and I did a small little dance class in every single kindergarten room. I worked with Coach Stiers at Tatum Ridge, and I taught in the PE classes. I went to Ashton Elementary School, and we did shows for their carnivals. I spent quite a bit of time and resources in our schools to get to know the kids, because the real clients are the kids.
Right.
If your child says, I really want to go to Stage Door, well, it's not even, I want to dance. Can I go to Stage Door?
Yeah. And my child is in Stage Door now, and that's what, you see your ads everywhere now at the schools.
Yep.
And I agree. You plug in with the schools, and right now it's 800 kids at that one, at Tatum, plus their families. And so what you hope, anyway, double that for the parents and grandparents and so on. And then you've done that to how many elementary schools in this area? 4 or 5?
When I first started, I was doing about 10. And then it was a little overwhelming for me, so I've pretty much narrowed it down to about 4 or 5. So, and we'll provide sunglasses for the jogathons, and advertise on the agenda books and on the car tags and on the signage, and anything that we can do to help kids. I was trying to figure out on our 15th anniversary, we're in year 18 now. I had figured out that it was probably like $250,000 towards the schools in like time and resources.
Yeah. Oh, time. And time is valuable. I mean, I understand that. But that's something you think you're given for free, but you do have what is your time worth? I mean.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I'll pay my staff to come work at different events. So, I will have to spend money on the time.
And I have seen your staff and met a lot of them, and they're all great, happy, friendly people. I mean, it's like you're going up to, what's that great fast food place that has happy...
Like Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A
Yes.
girls. Yeah, the Chick-fil-A staff.
Yes.
That's who it reminds me of. Let's step back a minute here. So tell me about, when I saw Stage Door advertised on the homework folders and a whole bit, whatever, I'm thinking some kind of a theater presence. Tell me, though, about, you have all kinds of different classes. For folks listening, tuning in on this, what kind of classes do you have? Give us a little bit about the details of the types of dance, type of classes, age ranges, all of that stuff.
Well, we start at 9 months old.
9 months.
Yep. We've got a Boppin' Babies class for 9 months old with their their caregiver.
Wow.
And we go all the way through 18. We've tried off and on to do adults, but let's face it, we make our kids stick to what they're supposed to do. We don't necessarily stick to it ourselves, so it was a little harder to do adult classes. We teach everything: ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop, cheer, theater. We have an aerial arts program at our second location, acrobatics, point, modern, contemporary, lyrical, you name it, we have it.
You do it for every age group.
I don't teach point to little children because their ankles are not ready. What they're physically capable
What
of
is point?
doing. Point would be like on the point shoes.
Okay.
So you need to make sure like that your ankles are
strong
fully
enough.
developed, your growth plate
And
is...
that's the difference between ballet and that?
Yeah.
Or is it the same?
So you'd have like ballet shoes, and then like the older you get, you'd get promoted
Point.
to point.
Wow.
Yeah.
And each class has what? How many kids are in the class? I mean, how many students? It can vary, I imagine.
Yeah,
but-
it varies. With the 2-year-old class, typical class is about 14, and then as they get older and you can take on more, you can do that. We also have an apprentice program, and that's our junior faculty, and that's children that are 11 to 17 years old, and they will assist in our classes. We have a whole training program, and we have anywhere from 1 to 3 assistants in the class with
in
the
classes.
teacher.
Who trained all of these assistants?
Well, I train them as well as the teachers at Stage Door. So we've got a training program that they'll come in and they'll train, and then we continue to promote. We have assistants of the month and assistants of the year,
But your first employee, you trained,
yes.
and then maybe they helped train somebody else.
Yeah,
And so
some
this
of my
kind
employees now were my assistants.
Wow.
So they've kind of grown up through the program, and then they've become faculty.
Well, if it's been 18 years, if they started when they were even 9, I mean, wow. Taking off. Now you just told me, I just found out 2 locations.
Yes.
Where are they at again?
So the large location is on Cattleman and Bee Ridge. That's the Stage Door Studios. And then we have Stage Door University, which is on University Parkway and Lockwood Ridge, right
Okay.
by Detweiler's,
Right.
right in that plaza. It used to be where the old Dollar movie was.
Right,
Right
right.
in there.
Nice. And so
Yes.
is there any difference between the 2 of them or just different locations?
Well, that one was a dance studio, and a couple years ago, it was a set of parents that purchased it and realized, wow, running a dance studio is not as easy as we thought it would be. And so the husband called me and said, please take it off my hands. So
For a small price, or was
yes,
it?
yes. I mean, I purchased the assets, and we changed the name so that it would still have that Stage Door branding.
Right.
But we named it Stage Door University since it was on University Parkway.
What's your goal? I have lots of questions here, but now that you're talking about having 2 locations, what is your goal ultimately, or are you about as stretched out as you want to be right now?
Well, Benderson purchased our plaza last year, so
Okay.
I was a little nervous as to if we would be able to renegotiate our lease.
Rent, right.
So that was one of the reasons why I took on that second location, because with the fear of the unknown, I did take that on just in case I needed to downsize or move somewhere else. But we have been very blessed that we have renegotiated another 6 years with Benderson, so we will be in our plaza for another
Another
6
6 years.
years.
Good.
The dream, and I'll put this out to you, Kendall. The dream is to someday buy a building. So if you see the perfect building, you've got to call me.
How many square feet you talking about?
Well, right now we have about 11,500 square feet. So in about 4 or 5 years, we'll be needing a building.
15,000,
Yeah,
20,000?
that would
Who
be
knows?
lovely. Yeah, who knows?
Wow. Tall
So-
ceilings, though, if you're going to.
Yeah, yep.
And mirrors all the way around.
Not too tall a ceiling, so because
No.
then the electric bill is pretty high.
big fans up there
Ceilings
blowing.
like this are just fine.
Yeah, this is nice. Cool. Well, that's interesting. So I was going to ask you, this is part of the whole lead into this. So how do you define success at Stage Door, and has that definition changed over the years?
Yeah, it always changes. But the number one goal is that we're promoting happy and healthy kids. And, when COVID hit, and that was one of the scariest times of my life, we transitioned everything to Zoom. I was very lucky. I was in a group of wonderful studio owners across the country called More Than Just Great Dancing. And we had been doing Zoom calls previously before COVID happened. So when everything happened, my friends in California who got hit with it a week before us in Florida, they were like, you're going to have to transition everything to Zoom. And I remember Joe Gruder's daughter was at our studio, the state senator. And I remember calling him on the phone and saying, okay, I think I have a plan. We're going to transition to Zoom. But can my teachers still come to the studio? Because, with all the electronics and setting everything up, I think I'm a little nervous about them setting up at their house and having their dogs at their house and not being ready for it. And he allowed it. At that time, we were a little bit smaller because we didn't have the expansion. So we had 4 dance rooms. So I'd have 4 teachers come in. We were each in a room, all by ourselves, teaching on Zoom in the room to the kids at home. And I remember Joe Gruder saying, you are pivotal. Our kids need you.
Yep.
Our kids need to still be doing something. And you are an essential service.
I was going to say, they called you an essential service.
That's what he said. He said, if anybody gives you a problem for going into your business, we were all social distanced. We were, we had the 4 in the room and then the 1 at the front desk, and I was in my office. And I just remember him saying, it's essential as to what you're doing for kids. And I think even more now that our kids went through that, it's even more essential that they're active and that they're doing dance.
Yes.
So, that's my first goal, is that, we're not really just making great dancers, but we're really making great kids. And that's how you define success. These kids. To me, yeah. And then my staff. I have 20 staff members, and I want to make sure that they can all make a living. I someday want to not have to walk into the grocery store and somebody say, oh, you're still doing that dance thing, that this is a business, And it's interesting how people think of it as like a hobby.
Right.
And like, I run a profitable business. I have a huge market share in Sarasota. Most people have heard of me. Most people have come to us. So I'm just hoping that for the next generation, we can make this a legitimate thing for them.
And go on. And your kids could take over someday, for all you know, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Now, along those lines as well, now, running a dance studio, you have to have a lot of challenges. And what would be your biggest obstacle so far, and what did you do to overcome it? It may have been COVID, may have been your biggest obstacle so far.
COVID was definitely we did 300 individual recitals.
Wow.
Little kids came in their costume, walked through the red carpet, did their, 2.5-minute recital dance for their mom and their dad and their sibling.
With a mask on?
No, it was still really early, so it wasn't really at that point where we were masking, but it was just the immediate family came in, they did the dance, they got their flower, they got their certificate, and they left. And then the next child came in, and it was a good 40 hours for my staff and I to just keep individually. The dads loved it. The dads were like, this was the best recital ever because it was 2.5 minutes. And
sit through the whole thing waiting for their daughter at the end.
Awesome. Yes, exactly. They were like, can you do this every year? And I was like, no.
Can you give them
So I would say, yes, that was definitely a huge thing. And to manage the differences of people and, people feeling frightened over COVID, wanting to be masking, people feeling like they didn't want to mask. All of those things were really difficult because you just needed to stay in business and you just needed to, do what made everybody feel safe and feel legitimate. So
And were you able to get, when you had some of those loans you could get to keep the company going if you needed that?
Yeah, I did the PPP loan,
Yep.
so that way my staff never lost any hours. They were continually, they were paid the same. In fact, anything, they might have made a little bit
Made
more
more
money
money.
with the 300 red carpet recitals. I did take the SBA loan, but I never took a set. I never needed it. My accountant was like, take it just in case. You never know
never know.
if
That's right.
there's
Right.
another shutdown or anything. You just don't know. I mean, I went from 740 students when COVID hit to 400 the next year. So it was quite a
Big
loss.
We just talked about that in the last presentation. I was talking to Matt Brain, and we were talking
Yeah.
about home equity line of credits, and grab it now. The market, is high now. The value of your home, the equity in your home, is pretty darn good, especially if you bought your home back in 2007.
Yeah.
Grab that money now and let it sit. It didn't cost me a darn thing to get that from Matt, and that could have helped you in a COVID situation.
Right.
Folks are a little short-sighted and they think I don't need that right now. And it's
Yeah,
sitting out.
I took it because it was very low interest rate. But after a year, I was like, okay, I'm okay. I'm gonna return it. I'm gonna be okay. Everything's good.
Good.
So yeah,
That's amazing. And amazing that they identified you as an essential worker. And I think hindsight's perfect. These kids needed to get out. I was up in Illinois during COVID, and that was the reason we moved back down to Sarasota. I was like, I moved out, came back, and the minute COVID hit up there, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, just shut down, and it was terrible. We were remote enough that we could still go do things and not mask up or keep the kids at home, and I would just go to the store. But and they were younger. But when we came back down to Florida, it was like a breath of fresh air. The mask came off, and it was very nice. So, well, that was probably your biggest hurdle ever.
Yeah, I would say
COVID.
that, and then anytime, there's been times where I've had a teacher leave and open a studio down the street.
Oh.
But I think, competition is good for you too. I think it is.
I guess,
think my
but do you-
biggest times of growth have been when that's happened or COVID happened. I think like I said, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm a big Tom Brady fan, and I loved it.
We're not going to put that in the air here. That's-
He played for the Bucks too, but I loved it when they called him, old and washed out, because he always played with a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
And I tend to have that in my business. When somebody says, "Oh, she's not going to make it," or "This happens," or I'm gonna shut you down," I tend to play with the chip on my shoulder a little bit, like I'm gonna
And
make
that-
it even better.
And that was one of my questions I was going to ask you too. But running stage door studios, what has that taught you about yourself? And that you didn't know when you first started it, and you're telling me you knew that about yourself. If someone says you can't,
Yeah. Yes.
and then I know Michael Jordan did that as well.
Correct.
In
Yep.
basketball.
Yeah.
He
The
was
greats. The greats are.
the greats are.
you know,
Yeah, tell me I can't, I'll show you.
They need the bulletin board material.
Yep, that's
They-
right.
They
Put
need
it
that.
up there.
Put it up there, and say that. And I think that's when I grow the most. When I
Challenged.
when I'm challenged,
Yeah.
or somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to go to this dance studio because they offer this, and that's better." And I look at my team and I go, "Well, we can improve. Let's make that better."
Better, yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. So how do you now? You have a family, you have kids, you have a husband. How do you balance your passion for dance, running a business, and your personal life? How do you do that? I mean, you have
Yeah.
a nanny on the side or something, or
No, we don't have the nanny. We did when the kids were younger to help. I'm super lucky because, like I said, I can sit with you in the mornings on Monday.
Kids are in school.
Our studio, we do have some morning classes, but a majority of the people come in starting at 4:00 in the afternoon until 9:30 at night. So I can be at the studio in the afternoons and the evenings, and my husband is off of work and he's at home. Because I've built such a strong group of management and dance teachers, I'm very blessed to say that I am able to, be home for my kids and, be there for dinner or spend the weekend with the family. I'm very lucky in
So
that
the balance is
sense.
that you have employees and people and friends and so on that have helped
Yes.
you grow this, and so
Yeah, the hardest times other than COVID of opening my dance studio was the beginning. I mean, I did everything. I was the janitor
Sure.
and I was the dance teacher and I was the office person and I handled every job. But I was single and I wasn't married. I wasn't even in a relationship. So I could do that.
Right.
It was about year 5 of my studio, and we were already at about 400 plus students, and I was able to take on a manager. And at that point, that's when I knew I was probably going to get married soon and probably start to look, at having children. So I was very blessed in that sense. The beginning first 5 years, I was single and,
And that was your life.
yeah,
That was your. And
that's all I did.
Yep, and that's good.
That's all I
Nothing wrong.
did.
Plugging into that and making it happen, I think, is why so many of these small businesses succeed, is because it
Yes.
becomes their life.
Yeah.
If
If
you-
I had to do this now with 2 kids and a husband, I think it would be a lot harder.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of talked about what you like to see your kids grow into and become and so on. But let's step back a little bit. So what is your philosophy on teaching kids? I mean, is it more important to you that they excel and hit excellence, or are they having fun and moving their bodies? What's the balance?
Well, it's got to be fun always. Like one of my themes that I put out is make dance class the highlight of your week. So it has to be fun.
Okay.
There's several different paths at my studio. You can be on that recreational path where you come in once a week and you celebrate getting to come to dance class and it's just the fun part of your life. And then you have the competitive track where some kids, that's what they want to do. And they come several times a week and they dance a lot more. And that would be more so the training track for them. So every class needs to be fun. And,
matter what. Yeah.
no matter what.
So you have like some of these baseball teams and hockey teams. I coached hockey for years, and you have your house teams, recreational, that it should be fun and learn the game and have
Yes.
fun. And then you have your travel teams, and they're a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more parent pushing, we'll call it. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, and the funny thing about any sports and even about dance, I was going to ask you about this question too. About I coached hockey for 15 years up in Chicago, and all these kids think they're going to play in the NHL someday. And I was one team of 15 kids, and there were 10 teams, and then there's another city that had 10. But, there are thousands and probably millions across the country of 8-year-old kids playing hockey, and they all think they're going to be the next hockey player in the NHL. And I think I had one child over the 10 years who actually made it to the NHL, and that was in the whole city we lived in. So same thing with you. I mean, I'm sure they all think they're going to become the next, I don't know, I'm going to show my age here, but Baryshnikov or great dancers of our era. Maybe it might be Michael Jackson. I don't know who. You could tell me better dancers, but
Sure.
have any of them gone on to maybe the Sarasota Ballet? Have they gone on to that or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing I want is to make, like I said, a great human, somebody that's employable. I think that's a huge thing. Somebody that's kind and nice. I always tell the kids it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. I want them to be able to get into college if that's what they want. I have students. I think it's also really great that they have such time management skills from dancing as well as doing school.
Right.
And being able to do extracurricular activities. I find that it's important. When I grew up dancing, I didn't go to prom, I didn't go to homecoming, I didn't go to a football game. I make sure that the kids can do those things. So I want you to go to prom. I will make sure that we figure out that competition's not going to affect
And
that.
not only go to prom, but dance well at
Yeah.
prom.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have some of my most favorite students ever are, last year my student was found to be Teacher of the Year in Hillsborough County. She works with autism children and our autistic children. And she is just pure joy, pure joy. I remember her as a senior. I was giving the speech that she was leaving, and I cried. And I said, you will never find somebody like this who's just so kind and who has such a work ethic and who's so wonderful. And then, sure enough, 10 years later, she's Teacher of the Year in Hillsborough County. I'm most proud of kids like that. Some of my students have become lawyers. They've become forensic science, experts. So many different jobs. But I've also created dancers, professionals. I have a talent agent in New York. She
always on the lookout.
She casts people. One of my students went in for the third callback of Music Man with, Sutton Foster and Hugh Jackman. I have a student that's been doing multiple cruise ships, lots of cruise ships. I have a student that's performing at Disney right now. I have a couple of students in New York City right now. So, if that's what they want, then I want to help them
achieve that.
But I just want to make sure that they're successful in whatever they do.
Yeah, that's interesting because as you get engaged in any activity like that, when I was younger, I was a part of the marching bands and so on in Chicago, and the Cavaliers, which is a drum and bugle corps. And what we realized is that the kids that were in those programs went on to some meaningful experiences in life because they were dedicated to this program, put the hours in, worked hard. They were trained to work hard at something, to become the best. And no, we didn't all become music majors, and they may not become dancers, but they went on into life to become very successful and great people. So I think you're saying the same thing, which is amazing for your program. It really is. I'm thinking, well, how many become dancers? And who cares? How many become great people? And that's amazing. Good for you.
Absolutely. That's what we need in this world.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we use a few more of those. And that ties into my other question, too. A lot of people don't realize how much community exists in a dance studio. Have you seen families maybe bond through dance better? Kids come out of their shells, maybe express themselves through dance when they couldn't through words. I mean, you see the metamorphosis of all this?
Absolutely. Well, this month, our culture, because we've got our great, huge culture poster when you walk in the door. And this month, our culture focus is on community, giving back to the community. Yesterday, we did an event at the studio for Dancers Against Cancer. Wow. And everything we raised from this event is going to go to Dancers Against Cancer. And it just hit me in the studio that two of the girls dancing, both of their moms are going through breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
And it's, when they're going through it, we're all going through it.
Right.
We've lost two small dancers at the studio to cancer, a 5-year-old Tisha and a 7-year-old Misha. Oh. And they both had cancer and unfortunately did not make it. But their sisters danced in the same dance class together, not even necessarily realizing it, that they both had lost a sister to cancer.
Oh, wow.
So I think that, being at the dance studio, it is like a large family. We've had a lot of students lose dads or, a mother, and it's important that we're all there together.
And let alone maybe not just lose somebody through death, but there's a lot of divorce
absolutely
happening out in this world. And if we can tie families together and keep them together by bringing them together for these events, that's great. And if not, if we can help the kids get through the divorce by dancing,
absolutely,
and that be their outlet, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Wow. Okay, so let's move on to some happier moments here. Do you think... You're going to get a tear in my eye here. I've never cried on my podcast yet. Do you think that everyone has a little dancer inside of them, or are some of us just not cut out to dance?
I think that everybody has a little bit of dance in them. I don't know if they want to do it, every week, but I think that just even at special events and different, we have kids that come only to our studio for summer camp. They don't come during the year. They love summer camp. And so it's just a matter of just...
Yeah, we came to summer camp too,
yeah,
right?
There you go. So just, I think, a lot of times we turn the disco ball on in our studio, and kids let loose. And they're really enjoying themselves at the end of class. And sometimes it's because they know not everybody's looking at them. They can do what they want to do.
And I think the younger they are, the easier that is too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
My kids at kindergarten, first grade, they're no care in the world.
Yes.
But that's how they look at life too. They look at there's no black and white. There's nothing defined out there. These great kids, they're playing with, and they just want to play with them and dance with them, and it's just amazing. You ever think about where dance came from? I mean, why we love music so much, and why we love to? Did you ever do any research on that, or does it go back to?
No, I just love it.
It doesn't we don't care where it came from. I love to do it.
Yeah, I mean, music I think it just transforms us, into a different state of mind, and all of the stress of the day. Even for little kids, they still stress about stuff. Right. It just goes away. I just remember thinking that I had to, on a bad day, I had to be at the dance studio. Or even like on a bad day that I didn't want to necessarily go to dance, once I went to dance, I felt so much better.
Nice. And I think with things being so digital now, that's another thing I was going to ask you about. Do you think activities like dance are even more important now than they were? I mean, get them out of their iPads and get them out moving.
We've actually started collecting phones from the teenagers because we have found that, they're dancing, and then like when it's time to get a quick water break, they're checking out their phones.
Texting them, right.
And it pulls them out of that, that joy.
Yep. And
puts them back in that state of mind. So we're like, all right, turn in your phones. Let's enjoy ourselves. Let's get away from that. And it creates that anxiety. I feel like a lot of children have anxiety because of the screens.
I think that's a good point too. If you're just trying to go to sleep at night, they say shut the phone off.
Yes.
Just chill.
Yes.
Because you can't pop back and forth into different realms,
It creates that cortisol in your brain.
As I mentioned earlier, Sarasota is known for our family-friendly area. How does a resource like Stage Door Studios, how does that add to the appeal of living here? Are you selling that to folks? They want to move down here. We've got Vanuatu, we've got ballet, we've got Stage Door. It all starts.
I need to.
Yes, it starts. This is the beginning level of that. Let's go.
I am very blessed in the sense of being a part of more than just great dancing with 300 other studio owners all across the world, that when people do move here, and obviously after COVID we had a lot of people move here.
Right.
I am one of those studios that is pushed to other families. I get a lot of people that come to me from another state and they say, oh, they said we had to come here.
Right.
So it
is a draw. That's good.
That's fun, because a lot of, especially the kids that are very involved in dance, and that might be the one thing that they didn't want to leave moving here.
Right.
To know that they could have another dance home.
Right.
Is appealing to them in that fact. So
that is neat. So it's good for you. Let's talk about if you were starting all over again. What's the one piece of advice you give someone who's passionate about the arts, but unsure how to start it or sustain that business? What advice would you give them?
I would say start small. Don't start big like the other studios did.
$250,000.
Yeah,
right?
Don't start small, and hire the right people. Don't overpay for the fancy person. Make sure you've got the genuine people that want to be supportive of you. Get involved, with your schools, and just keep doing the right thing.
But you kind of said before, but plug in, like you're the owner. It's your life. And I think if you make your starting business your life, it almost can't fail because it's part of your life.
Absolutely.
It's not something you're doing on the side, and then, well, if it works, it works.
Absolutely. You got to go all in.
And it's something you dance very well. What do you dance well at? All these things. Are you a good tap? Well, what's your best dance?
I was a good jazz,
Okay.
theater jazz dancer. My forte.
Chorus line type. Well, that's more about.
Oh yeah, Broadway.
Yeah.
My forte is teaching little kids. I just really love little kids. Wow. So that's what I did. With the 17 dance classes a week in my senior year, was little kids. So that's
kids,
my
you mean
passion.
Kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah, 3, 4, 2.
And your sister's passion as well.
Yeah.
So is that something that your mom and dad instilled in you?
Well, my parents were both teachers too. So my dad was an elementary school teacher. He taught at Ashton Elementary School when we first moved here in the late 80s, and then he went to Tatum Ridge when it first opened until 2013 is when he retired. So my mom, she was a kindergarten teacher at Philippi Shores. She was like an ESE teacher at Fruitville Elementary, and then she was the assistant principal at Sarasota Middle School, and then became principal at Epiphany Cathedral in Venice.
Wow.
So, both of my families, that's why they were like, you're going to be a dance teacher. You're going to own a studio. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be like my parents. And I'm just
there
like my parents.
And your sister, we can mention her name. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Jennifer McCarran. So I have two sisters. I have Jennifer McCarran and I have Jackie McAllister.
Wow.
And Jennifer McCarran is a kindergarten teacher at Tatum Ridge. She was a kindergarten teacher at Wilkinson Elementary for 19 years before going to Tatum Ridge.
And I see her every day, and she is about that. She's got the same smile you have. She's just happy to be there.
Yes.
Enjoys what she's doing. And it's a lot of work.
I forced her to go to Tatum.
Did
you?
You
got to go to Tatum, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good place. A good fit.
Yes. So Barry Dunn can thank me.
and that's, my podcast with Barry, as we talked about before, was your school is run so well.
Yeah.
It's amazing how choreographed, and I use that word too, how choreographed the day is, from the kids coming in to leaving and everything in between. And you're doing a good job. And he credited all the folks who are there, again, like your team.
Yeah.
The folks that are there, the parents that are involved, the community that it's part of. And he's blessed. He really is blessed. It could be, he came from some other school as well, and he says it wasn't quite the same. But, wow. I just have a few more questions for you here. I think this is, if you could design a dance class for a famous figure, anybody famous out there, what would it be, and what kind of routine would they learn?
Oh. So anybody famous?
Anybody famous.
And then, most famous people are going to probably lean towards like hip hop dancing, more jazz dancing. So I would probably set a piece for, like J-Lo.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice. That'd be fun.
She's a great dancer.
Yeah.
I saw her in Vegas, and her work ethic is really strong.
Is it?
Very strong. Oh yes. Yeah, she's a beast.
Wow. And you've ever thought about branching out? I'll close with this. Have you ever thought about branching out your studio, like combining like dance with some crazy new technology or virtual reality, which in COVID you almost did, but it's something out there now?
I don't know. It's funny because for a long time I would go to these places where they would tell us that dance was going to be more virtual reality,
right.
that people were not going to come to a dance studio, that they were going to do it from home, and that we needed to reinvent ourselves. And I heard that for years, and then COVID happened, and I was, oh no, they were right. Oh no, they were right. But I will tell you, from doing that, most people want to go to you. They want to get out of the house.
Yep.
And they want to feel that sense of community in the classroom and have kids around other kids. Most kids start in a dance class because they just want to make friends. Or moms want to make friends. Moms may, you might move to the area and you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and you're just want to make some friends. So I don't necessarily see it going in that direction, only because we got a glimpse of it during COVID.
Right.
Maybe someday, but I think that we all still want to be around each other.
People. I think we learned that in COVID.
Yes,
that, we do need human
yeah,
connection, because
absolutely.
some of the kids who went through that for years of not getting that
Yes.
suffered a little bit because of that. But that's interesting.
And being next to someone who maybe inspires you to be a little bit better. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, it's true.
It's Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, they inspire each other to push harder.
Yep.
So I think being in the classroom with everybody, it just kind of lifts them a little bit more.
I think great. Now, I'm sure also you have to deal with. I'm sure there are some moms who are comparing the kids and so on, and it's unfortunate that happens in this world, whether it's a beauty pageant or a dance recital or whatever. Just enjoy it, have fun with it. These, 99% of these kids aren't going to become premier dancers in this world, but they're going to become premier people. And I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome that you have that going on at your studio. So I'll close it with this. Jill, thank you so much. This
Yes.
is Jill Athridge, CEO, founder of Stage Door Studios. Call the office, 941-921-1600 here in Sarasota, the best dance studio. And as we found out during this conversation, it's a whole lot more about people than dancing.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching Conversations with Kendall.